to News and Views, myself, Salah Makwidire. And yeah, just when many hoped that the conflict in the Middle East had reached its peak, it has entered another dangerous phase. The United States has launched a fresh wave of strikes on Iranian military infrastructure. This is after US President Donald Trump ordered additional operations and a naval blockade around the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most strategically important maritime choke points, through which roughly a fifth of global oil supplies pass. No, you probably know that fact by now, considering that we all had to do so much reading and researching of why that part of the globe is so important. At the same time that is happening, the conflict is also widening. Yemen's Houthis have fired missiles towards Saudi Arabia, ending years of relative calm between the two sides and raising serious fears that the war is no longer confined to Iran and Israel, but is evolving into a broader regional confrontation and is drawing in multiple state and non-state actors. The implications, as expected, extend far beyond the battlefield. Global energy markets are on edge. Diplomatic channels appear increasingly constrained, and questions are mounting of whether international humanitarian law is being upheld as civilian casualties continue to rise across the region. And joining us now is Professor Saul Takahashi, Osaka-based international human rights and humanitarian lawyer. Prof, welcome back. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning. And once again, talking about the Middle East, the United States of America, and how this is starting to become a never-ending war by Donald Trump.
Well, that was always kind of the danger, of course. I mean, there was never going to be any question of Trump having this cakewalk that he expected to have, and that he would drop a few bombs and maybe assassinate a few leaders, and then the Iranians would roll over and cry uncle. I mean, he honestly seems to believe that's what would happen, and of course he was tricked into this by the Israelis on that front as well. Getting back, you mentioned international humanitarian law, and of course, international law in general. I mean, I am, of course, an international lawyer, so that's a perspective I always bring to these kind of things. And it's important, to remember this and to get back to basics, if you like, get back to the start of all this, because, none of this, first of all of this started with a completely illegal war of aggression on the part of the U.S. and Israel on Iran. I mean, it's important to remember that. These kind of naval, this naval blockade that he imposed, and he took off, and then he's imposing again, and what have you. A naval blockade is an act of war, full stop. So, this is not some kind of like legitimate tool in all heads of states toolboxes that they can use. This is ridiculous. These are illegal acts of aggression, every single one of them, and that has to be said. You mentioned international humanitarian law, of course, the international law of war, and whether it has been followed, and of course it hasn't been. There's no question. And what we're seeing, of course, is a complete Gazification of the conduct of war, meaning that you go in and massacre civilians left and right, no regard whatsoever for any kind of legal or moral restraint, destruction of civilian infrastructure, destruction of any kind of destruction of the healthcare system, destruction of any kind of like cultural infrastructure as well. Anything, anything and everything that a people need to sustain their existence and to continue on their existence as a nation. The U.S. has not gone that far quite yet with Iran, but of course Trump has been threatening to do so, and he's done so on several occasions. The Israelis have been doing so obviously in Gaza, and they've been doing the same in Lebanon, lest we forget. And the thing is, there's been a lot of international attention, of course, ever since this MOU has been signed between the Americans and the Iranians. The international attention has really been focused on the Straits of Hormuz. And now maybe perhaps, it might be expanded to the Red Sea. Let's see what happens. And it is understandable that people are concerned about this, because it is one of the lifelines of the global economy, and it hits everybody where it hurts, and, all that kind of thing. But, none of this, what was this escalation that's happening now, none of this would be happening if the U.S. lived up to its commitments under the MOU. I mean, this is, this is really the Americans' fault. The MOU says very clearly that the war in Lebanon will stop, full stop. And the Americans have to rein in the Israelis. And had they done that, and there's no question that they can if they really tried. I mean, they don't even have to really try. A couple of phone calls and it would happen. But had they, made an honest effort to rein the Israelis in and to get them with the program, then there would be an element of trust. And I think all of these issues about the Strait of Hormuz and tolls or service fees or this kind of thing, it could be sorted out with a minimum of fuss, honestly. The Americans and the Iranians have, they both have their positions, and they want to sort of, both of them, want to show that they're not in the mood to give way. But the fact of the matter is, both sides do want an agreement. They want this war to end. Trump, in particular, is absolutely desperate to have this end. And that's why, neither of them have come out and said, we're cutting this off. We're not doing any more negotiations anymore. We're not doing, this MOU is just done and over with. I mean, Trump has said that in a couple of times, but he, in the same breath, as he often is wont to do, he says that, but, a technical team is on their way and they're going to meet the Iranians and et cetera, et cetera. So it's never really clear. But, both sides do want this agreement to work. They want this war to end. There is one player who is, in fact, not even party to this MOU, but that's a whole other issue. Then there's one player in all of this that wants this war to continue, that want it to escalate, and they want to destroy Iran, and that is Israel. They've done their utmost from the get-go to make sure to sabotage this MOU, to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And they continue to massacre civilians in Lebanon and, of course, Gaza. And so that's why this is where we are. I mean, the Iranians have, on many occasions, pointed to Lebanon as the root cause of what's been going on. And of course, it points to the lack of trust. It adds to the lack of trust that the Iranians rightly have vis-a-vis the United States. So, really, that's the more fundamental issue. I mean, the Straits of Hormuz, I think, really can be sorted out. It's really Lebanon and reining in the Israelis that has to happen.
I want to go for a quick break, but when you come back, I want to hone in on, because you keep referencing the MOU so many times, I want to hone in on what could have been the ultimate breakdown of the peace process and the negotiations, because one element is Lebanon and the Israeli element. Another one could be what many might consider strings that were not tied after the MOU was signed. Iranian nuclear ambitions, maybe, and the fact that the Iranians felt like the United States of America was not negotiating in good faith is another element. But we'll touch on those after the break. What could have ultimately led to the breakdown of the peace negotiations and led us to where we find ourselves? Is it one thing, or is it a range of things, multifaceted kind of elements that ultimately led us to the resumption of the hostilities between the two parties? But we'll do that after the short break.
Sure.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations reservations. Call now on 042 203 1400 or visit quantu.co.za. The Quantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Africa. Give the gift of clean water with Africa Muslims Agency. With every water well or borehole you donate, your drop becomes a river, reconnecting communities to nourishment, education, dignity and empowerment. Sponsor a water well for 17,000 Rand in Africa or a borehole for 65,000 Rand in Afghanistan or Africa. Quench the thirst. Reconnect the soul with Africa Muslims Agency.
Right now, in lands many of us feel deeply connected to, a mother holds a sick child, worried and fearful as she knows her nearest hospital has been destroyed. This is the mother we go beyond borders to reach. Doctors Without Borders is there in the world's toughest places. We go where others can't or won't, and we go immediately. When you give to us, we go even further. Visit msf.org.za/sadaqa, that's SADAQAH, and support Doctors Without Borders today. Doctors Without Borders, we go there.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Minutes before top of the hour, and you're still tuned in to News and Views. Myself, Salailo Makwidira, and I'm still in conversation with Osaka-based international human rights and humanitarian lawyer, Professor Saul Takahashi. And Prof, thank you so much for staying with us, by the way. Before we went on to that short break, I wanted to get your opinion on what we could point at as the ultimate breakdown of negotiations, of peace talks between the USA and Israel. Many people point at Israel and Lebanon, and also the Iranian ambitions of nuclear, and also the United States of America essentially not negotiating in good faith. From your perspective, looking at what happened post that MOU was signed, what could have went wrong?
Well, with these kind of things, a lot of things can always go wrong. First of all, I don't really think that peace negotiations have completely broken down just yet. I still have a little bit of faith, again, because both the US and Iran, despite their very tough rhetoric, they really do want an agreement to take into effect, and they want this war to end. So we have to see. But, things don't look that good right now, and to say the least. And of course, we're sort of an escalating spiral, if you like. So that's bad news. Like I mentioned before, the whole issue of Israel and Lebanon is definitely in the background and also in the foreground occasionally with all of this, because it really speaks to what sort of trust Iran can have in this entire process. Look, the Americans attacked this Iran twice in the middle of peace negotiations. Fool me once, as we say. And the thing is, if I were on the Iranian side, I'd have a lot of trepidation, a lot of hesitation to enter into any kind of negotiations with the United States. How could they, how could you say that they have any intention of acting in good faith? This is the thing. These international agreements, like a lot of contracts, there is. Within the MOU, there's a bit of general and vague language, and that's just the nature of the beast. But the thing is, because the two sides come together and they enter into an agreement, there's usually some modicum of trust, or at least some kind of willingness to try to build trust. But because trust has completely broken down, it was always going to be quite difficult. And now, with the Americans basically refusing to rein in the Israelis, with these kind of constant ongoing attacks by the Americans and this ongoing, offensive language on the part of Trump, and now J.D. Vance suggesting that, they've just signed the MOU so that they can replenish their weapons stores, all these kind of things. I mean, the Iranians are watching all of this, and there are a lot of factions within the Iranian government saying, look, what's going on here? Why are we bothering with this? We shouldn't, we're going to get attacked again. We're going to get betrayed again. And so we've got to take a much stronger stance, and that's really where we are now. There's really no trust. Frankly, I think there's probably more trust, or maybe I'm even called respect, on the part of Trump vis-a-vis the Iranians than the other way around. And that's the somewhat ironic thing. The Iranians have never acted in an overtly untrustworthy way as the Americans have. And Trump was, when he was first signing the MOU and all this, and he made a lot of statements, basically hilariously parroting Iranian talking points and saying that they were decent people, and he had a lot of respect for them and all this. Obviously, he says these kind of things. You can't really take them seriously, but he does mean them when he says it. So it's I think it's more the fact that the Americans have not put their money where their mouth is, in particular when it comes to Israel. And these constant, any time and everything that something happens in the Straits of Hormuz, the instant American reaction, okay, we're going to bomb again. And this is not how you do things. I mean, again, we get back to the same problem that we've seen over and over again with Trump and with his ilk. They have no idea what they're doing, none whatsoever. These are clowns. Trump is a professional con man. That's all he's ever been, and that's all he's ever going to be. Witkoff, Kushner, these are the people in charge of negotiation. This would be a sick joke if it were, if it weren't so harmful to the rest of the world. We really are watching idiocracy in the real world, and and with this kind of thing, they rush into an MOU because they want the spectacle of signing, and they figure everything will just be sorted out as they go along. When things don't go exactly as they want, then the only thing that they have resort to is threats, bullying, brute force. This is all Trump knows how to do, because he the art of the deal. This is some kind of, this is just ridiculous. He's never never done any kind of deal on anything. He bullies, he cajoles, he strong arms, he pushes people into subjugation. This is all he knows. But with this kind of international negotiation, especially with where the other side has a very good very good cards to play, and they've been playing them very adeptly. They have no idea what to do, and so here we are. We're stuck with this, and so it's just bomb, and the fear now, of course, is that we're going to fall into the escalation, the spiral of escalation. That's really the frightening thing. I do hope that doesn't happen. Again, there's still hope, I believe, because both sides do really want this. They don't want to return to full-scale hostilities. Both sides do want this agreement to work out, or some sort of agreement to work out. So I just, very much hope that the Israelis are not successful in sabotaging the deal. And it's not just, the Israelis' direct crimes against humanity in Lebanon. It's also, of course, they are puppets in Washington, D.C. that are also doing their utmost to pull out the rug from underneath Trump and to sabotage the whole thing. So, I very much hope that they are not successful, and that this will work out somehow.
There's another element to the story that is emerging. We saw the Houthis have now resumed missile attacks against Saudi Arabia. This is after years and years of peace, relative calm between those two bodies. What does this tell us about the trajectory of this conflict? Are we witnessing the emergence of what could be a truly regional war?
Well, again, I don't think any side really wants that. I mean, the only people who really want it, of course, are Israel.
Yeah.
The Houthis have been very reticent to sort of get on board and go forward with concrete military actions since the Americans and the Israelis attacked Iran in late February. It was a card that I believe it was the card that the Iranians also hoped that they wouldn't have to play. The Houthis, of course, are they have agency. They're not just a mere proxy of the Iranians. They're allied with Iran, but they have their own agency and their own issues that they need to deal with. So there are all these complicated factors going ahead. But basically, it was a card that I believe they didn't really want to cut until they thought that they really had little choice. And again, that's the concerning thing about what's been going on, because it's in terms of the Houthis and Saudi Arabia, because it indicates that we are heading towards an escalation, and that's a little bit frightening. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the path we are going to go down. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to break down. A lot depends on what sort of response the Americans and the Gulf countries have. So we have to see. But it's a worrying sign, no question. It's a sign that there's potential for further escalation, and that would be good news for nobody. Really, that would be very bad news.
No good news for nobody except for Israel, as you mentioned, Prof.
Well, except for Israel, yes, exactly.
Really, really appreciate you giving us your time, and hope we chat again soon.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
There you go, Professor Saul Takahashi, coming to us live from Osaka, giving us very, very important insights and helping us navigate what this turning out to be an increasingly volatile and very, very uncertain period in the escalations between USA and Iran. And yeah, one thinks about it and tries to recall that this began as a confrontation involving Israel and Iran, and now appears to be evolving into a broader regional conflict. Multiple actors now entering the battlefield, and there are new fronts that are opening up. The latest one, obviously, being the Houthis firing missiles in Saudi Arabia. The risk is extending well beyond the Middle East, and the implications are felt by all of us. So it'll be interesting to see how the next couple of days unfold, and if there's still space for diplomacy. Is there still space for negotiations and permanent ceasefire to be in place? And what Professor Takahashi is saying is that's what everyone wants to see, except for Israel. And I think we can all agree on that one. We've come to the end of today's edition of News and Views. Thank you so much for joining us for the past 2 hours. I'm going to be back with you tomorrow for the Thursday edition of the show. Inayat Wadi will be joining us later, 7 to 9 p.m. Wednesday nights with Inayat Wadi. Really interesting conversations and panel discussions are being had there, so you don't want to miss it. Otherwise, you can continue to follow us on our various social media platforms. If you missed any of the interviews, head over to our Spotify channel, and you can listen to us on the go and at your own convenience. Otherwise, for myself, Salailo, and the rest of the team, it's bye for now. Shap, shap.